My dear brothers and sisters of the world, greetings from Universal Peace and Charitable Trust. As part of our Global Aid programs, I bring this message to you all with the hopes that it may help to reduce the divorce rates around the world and to build strong and healthy family relationships. Marriage is one of the most sacred events in our lives, at least for a majority of us. In the olden times, which I would like to refer to as the golden times, the happily ever after was not a myth but a reality for the most. The increasing divorce rate in many countries is a clear indication that it is getting harder and harder for even two people to be together. Many of us are seeing our close friends and relatives breaking their unions, and many of us have experienced it ourselves. Whichever may be the case, it breaks our heart when things like this happen. This analysis is driven by this factor to identify the reasons behind the increasing divorces in the world and provide some suggestions to help the future generations to have a strong union. I hope this study will also help people in a strained relationship who may be on the verge of breaking up their sacred bond to rethink that decision. If you know of such people, I kindly request you to share this with them. There are 4 sessions in this study on building strong marital relationships to reduce divorce rates around the world. Session 1 includes divorce statistics from a few countries around the world and analyzes the mindset of the present generation that is contributing to the cause. Session 2 includes a comparison between love marriage and arranged marriage system in India. Also, a brief analysis is done on child marriage, women oppression, and women in ancient India. Session 3 discusses some techniques used in ancient India to make monogamy a reality. Also, a brief analysis is done to see how adult contents in media contribute to problems in marital relationships and cause other damages to the world. Session 4 provides some suggestions from the ancient teachings to ensure successful marriages, thereby reduce divorce rates in the future. Session 1. In this session, first we're going to look at the divorce rates in some other countries. We will then study the mindset of the present generation that is contributing to this issue. The flood of changes in a very short time, say in the past 50-60 years, has not only brought many great things into the world, but also has brought enough turbulence with it, which is quite normal. This is a transition period, and many of us are finding it difficult to adapt to the fast-changing world. People's lifestyle has changed drastically. People's expectations in life have changed. The options that we have in life have tremendously increased. But the fact of the matter is, as we enjoy the pleasures that the modern world has to offer, there is also a need to find a balance so we don't go overboard and lose the meaning of life. Before we dive deep into the issue and look at the possible solutions, let us first take a quick glance at the divorce statistics from a few countries around the world. In the US, a frightening number such as 40 to 50% of the marriages end up in divorce floats around quite a bit, but a report by Glenn Stanton from Public Discourse brings relief to that disheartening stat. Glenn's report states that the above number is based on the cohort measure rate method, which does not provide an objective number and it is only an educated projection. The refined divorce rate method, which uses a per thousand married people as a measure, states that 19 marriages out of every 1,000 end up in divorce. Also, a New York Times article states that while the divorce rate peaked in the 70s and 80s, it has been on the decline for the last 3 decades, which is certainly a happy and welcoming news. Similar reports about the UK float around, which states that nearly 42% of the marriages end in divorce. But a recent stat from Telegraph brings relief to that. This report states that 9.8 per thousand marriages end up in divorce, and it is the lowest level since 1975. In Australia, according to the 2014 report by the Australian government, the number of divorces has decreased by 2.4%. In India, according to the Hindustan Times, there is a sudden surge in the divorce rate. Currently, it is at 13 per thousand marriages in comparison to 1 per thousand 10 years ago. According to the Quint, the UN stats state 1.4 dowry deaths per 100,000 females were reported in India in 2012 against 3.4 homicides per 100,000 women worldwide. In other words, India accounts for 41% of the global toll of murdered women. It is heartbreaking to see this happen in a land that held women with such respect and dignity during the Vedic times. The report also states that divorces granted by the family courts increased by 350% between 2003 and 11 in Kolkata and doubled in Mumbai between 2010 and 14. Of the 2,000 divorce cases filed in Lucknow, 900 were filed by couples who were married for less than a year. In a country that has not known divorce even up to a significant portion of the 20th century, these figures are really disheartening. In China, according to the report from Facts and Details, in the first quarter of 2011, 465,000 divorces are recorded, a 17.1% increase from the same period a year earlier, which translates to a dissolution of 5,166 marriages every day. This is appalling. The number of couples who filed for divorce in 2013 climbed to 3.5 million, according to the stat from the Ministry of Civil Affairs. A report from Forbes states China's divorce rate climbed by 3.6 million cases in 2014. A Beijing Youth Daily report says that this was the 12th consecutive annual increase. According to the Chinese Ministry of Civil Affairs and the China Daily newspaper, about 1/5 of all marriages end in divorce, compared to 13% in 97, 3% in 1980s, and nearly zero in the 50s and 60s, when community units were often called to take action if a couple were thinking about getting divorced. To summarize the stats, it appears that the Western world with a history of peak divorce rates is now heading in the right direction, while countries like India and China, with virtually zero divorces even through a significant portion of the 20th century, is going downhill. One main reason I could think of for this is that the West has started to see the value of yoga, meditation, and other such valuable practices, allowing them to face the personal life challenges in a better fashion. On the other hand, in countries like India and China, these priceless ancient traditions have taken a backseat today, and people are taking more and more to materialism. Let us now look at the mindset of the present generation at a regional level. India had almost never seen divorces even for a significant portion of the 20th century. But today, we can see a sudden spike in the graph. Sadly, day in and day out, couples walk into divorce courts wanting to cut off the sacred bond. We can see couples breaking up even within a month or two of their marriages. A Times of India article lists some very bizarre reasons given by individuals for filing divorce, such as, "I feel cheated by my mother-in-law," "I do not like my wife's appearance," "My husband is not presentable," "I was living in a bigger house before," so on and so forth. It is apparent that many young men and women are walking into the union without any clarity about marriage and the load of responsibilities and sacrifices that come with it for a marriage to be successful. More than anything else, the key decision-making point is the outward looks of the individual and the physical attraction that is associated with it. The other driving factors are the material aspects of life, such as job, assets, etc. We can see girls coming up with a long list of expectations, or even one could say demands, in the man they want to marry, such as he should have a car, a house, bank balance, and so on. I think they ought to wait till the man turns 40 before they can marry him. Or perhaps a ridiculous dowry system where the groom's family demanded hefty sums, jewelry, car, bikes, and so on from the bride's family is now being reversed. In addition to these demands, many girls don't want the parents of the man to live with them after the wedding. In a country where a joint family system has been a practice for ages, this trend in the recent decades has thrown the parents of the grooms in a very precarious position. They feel they have raised their sons toiling, taking heavy loans for their education, and putting up with all the hardships of life, only to be suddenly thrown out on the streets like orphans. This insecurity is one of the main reasons why the parents of the grooms become so possessive suddenly, trying to keep their sons with them, and sometimes even go to the extent of passing difference of opinion between the husband and the wife. Some resort to dominating the house from day one, so the girl knows who the boss is in that house. In turn, the girls also try the same techniques, and some even pester their husbands to move out of the house, and the man is caught in between them. Ultimately, the peace of mind of the family is ruined, and the unity in the family goes away, leading to parting under really bitter terms. We also see many young girls not wanting to get married because they don't want to give up their independence. I once heard a few young female doctors talking in a crowded place. One of them said, "I don't want to marry. I cannot give up my freedom for that." She's not the only one with that mindset. Many of the modern youngsters are like that. Tons of articles are found on the web indicating that the young generation does not believe in long-term relationships or in marriage anymore. This sure is a warning sign. Why does one have to look at marriage as a trap? With that right kind of education, the happily ever after can be made a reality, or at least we can come close to that. I'm all for women empowerment in terms of education, job, money, and whatnot, but it need not be traded with remaining unmarried. life will become meaningless. If I have good education, a good job, and all the money in the world, but no one to share it with, then what is the point of having all this? Not just that, the mind will start to wander, wanting to fulfill the bodily desires, leading to undesirable outcomes. It applies to men too. The only exception is if someone is spiritually mature enough to renounce the worldly pleasures and dedicate their life to God. It takes a very strong mind to overcome sexual desires, and usually it comes to maybe 1 in a million. The rest of us have to fulfill our family duties, which include marriage. A quick recap of the key points from this session. Countries with increasing divorce rates like India and China have to rediscover the value of yoga, meditation, and other traditional spiritual practices to steer the future generations in the right course of life. There is a need to counsel the present generation about the challenges that a marriage has to offer so they don't break the sacred bond for some very silly reasons. That brings us to the end of this session. Please take time to join us in session 2. Thank you. Session 2. In this session, first we're going to make a small comparison between love marriages and the traditional arranged marriage system in India. We will then look at how child marriage continues to be a big menace around the world. And finally, we will look at some things about women oppression today and how women were in ancient India. During a divorce case ruling, the High Court of Mumbai stated that divorces are very high in love marriages. Though it is only common sense, the stats-based statement is a clear proof that the young age does not give the ability to make life-altering decisions. Parents have a vital role to play. Having said that, let us compare love marriages and arranged marriages. The word love. In the modern era, not a day passes without hearing it at least 100 times. Turn to any channel on the TV or the radio, browse through any magazine or newspaper or website, it's all about the L word. Thousands of movies have been made on this subject ever since movie making started. Movie makers don't seem to get tired of it, and neither do the people. Other than true saints, everyone else passes through this phase in life, not just humans, but anything that breathes the air falls into the cycle of romance at some point or the other. After all, the mere existence of life on this planet mainly depends on this concept. In India, people living in cities have become more receptive to love marriages in the recent years. But we all know that up until a couple of decades ago, it was looked at as a crime if every other person were to fall in love before marriage. More number of people would have died protesting against it than the number of people who actually died for love. It was eating my brains thinking as to why such a beautiful concept had so much disapproval as a common way of life in the Indian society. After all, this is the basis for procreation. Looking at the Indian history, one can definitely say that the Indian customs were never against falling in love. Tons of poems and epics have been written about the art and the power of love. We all have seen both the rise and fall of kings and kingdoms, all because of love. Love stories from the ancient history like Romeo and Juliet or Laila Majnu became all-time favorites just for the fact that they happened once in a blue moon. That's the reason they are adored and respected so much. The real power of love was seen in those days. But the modern day love is not as strong as they used to be, and the phrase being in love has taken different forms and meanings today, and it is currently in its worst. Love marriages have gained considerable acceptance in India, especially in big cities. Having a girlfriend or a boyfriend was quite common even in my college days, though the parents almost never found out about it. But the young minds are not truly in love. To most of them, having a girlfriend or a boyfriend is all about going to the movies together, going to a beach, going for a picnic, going to a restaurant, etc. And according to some newspaper reports, many of them take it to the next level, which is physical. This rootless relationship sure takes a bad turn more than often, ending in breaking up the relationship. And the history repeats itself until the person grows out of this. There's one concept that is very hard to understand about India for people from other backgrounds or other geographical locations. It is the arranged marriage system. I have been asked this question several times. How can someone marry a person without knowing anything about him or her? The mere fact that India didn't know the concept of divorce in those days is itself a strong proof as to how well defined and effective the arranged marriage system must have been, and how two people were able to connect with each other mentally, emotionally bond with each other, develop such understanding that words weren't necessary to know what the spouse was thinking, but simply looking at the eyes was good enough, and all other such great qualities a relationship needs. The arranged marriage system I'm referring to is during the times when the ancient Indian traditions and culture were at its best, when women in India were held with such great respect and dignity. The recent history has seen extensive damages to the system, and today arranged marriage is not at its best either, and there is a desperate need for reform in the system. Why India followed and continues to follow to some extent the arranged marriage system? The reason is simple. Turning 18 does not make someone completely fit to make life-altering decisions. In general, starting from the age 13, physical attraction to the opposite sex dominates more than anything else. As we all know, both boys and girls go through major physical and mental changes during their teens. At that age, it is a turn-on to see even a wooden doll dressed in sleeveless. That's not love. There's another word for it. It's called infatuation. With absolutely no real-life experience, there's no way in the world one can make such big decisions like marriage. And that's exactly why parents intervened and followed a foolproof process using astrology to get their sons and daughters married. This astrology was foolproof only in the olden days. Today it is a thriving business in every nook and corner of India. Astrology in its pure form is both scientific and mathematical, which mainly uses the planetary system and the planets' positions to deduce the effect of them in an individual's life, and also clearly tell the compatibility between two individuals in several aspects of life. People who practiced astrology in the olden days did not do it in a business-like manner, but treated it more as a divine matter. They also practiced several self-disciplining tasks to ensure the purity of thought, and there was nothing but truth in what they said. That was why astrologers of those days were able to make precise predictions and also make precise match between two individuals. In the modern era, just like everything else about the Vedic system, astrology has also taken a bad turn, and people have to be extremely careful when they use this method to decide their children's future. Though I lean more towards the arranged marriage system, I am strongly against it in its current form. The system requires serious reforms. Blindly using astrology or a half-baked astrologer means the deduced results could be wrong, which could potentially jeopardize the lives of two individuals entering the union. At the same time, the young minds do not have the life skills to make this life-altering decision on their own. Even if the boy or the girl chooses their life partner on their own, the parents of both sides should take serious measures in terms of finding the background of the individual as well as the background of the family. There are way too many bad things going on in the world today, and we don't want our son or daughter to fall for something that they would regret later in their life. Secondly, even today, many marriages happen against the wishes of the to-be married individuals. In my opinion, this is not only unfair, but also would be unproductive in the long run. If our son or daughter isn't going to be happy with someone, then why force them? In a rush to finish the responsibility as a parent, it cannot be something like, find someone overnight and dump the person on the boy or the girl and wash my hands off. The parents have to take time to explain the pros and cons of the match to their son or daughter and convince them without forcing them. It has to be a slow and steady process, and certainly a team effort. Ideally, if the parents were to move with their son or daughter like a friend, the closeness would enable them to understand their children better, and the children would also share the likes and dislikes with their parents without any reservation. This healthy bond would make it easy to find someone to their taste, at the same time ensuring the worthiness of the individual and the family as well. Let us now look at some things about child marriage, women oppression today, and women in ancient India. According to International Center for Research on Women, child marriage is widespread in many developing countries, and child brides number over 70 million worldwide. In some countries, more than half of the girls are married before they turn 18. It is appalling to see child marriage being a big menace even in the 21st century. I don't know how and with what intention the system originated in other countries, but in India, the intent of ancient child marriage system was on the basis of developing a strong emotional bond between a pair without any physical relationship whatsoever, so their minds didn't wander during the growing years and especially during the vulnerable teen years. The physical attraction towards the opposite sex and falling in love is almost inevitable during this transition period. It becomes very hard to control the mind during this time, and good or bad, it wants to try things. Given such a vulnerable state of mind, this ancient method ensured that the love blossomed only towards a spouse. The first love that comes in that age is very strong and deep, and it's very hard to break it. So once a mind is strongly set on someone, it has no reason to wander. In other words, the lust was controlled and all the love was directed towards that one person. This helped them to preserve the one man, one woman concept typically known as monogamy. It is very important to note that sexual relationship had no place in this early marriage. Though a boy and a girl were married at a very young age, the girl grew up in her parents' house until she was mature enough both by body and mind to handle sex. The system took a really bad turn in the modern times, resulting in abusing children, especially girls. Fortunately, the Child Marriage Restraint Act, popularly known as the Surda Act, came as a relief in 1929 to prevent the abuse. Though awareness has come, India is nearing a century since this law has come into force, but still this problem is quite prevalent in the rural parts, and apparently a serious problem in other parts of the world too. It is highly disheartening to see the lives of millions of young girls ruined by this heartless bunch in the world. Hope every country that is inflicted with this disease takes serious actions to save the future of these innocent children. Women oppression may be true to some extent in the modern India, but definitely not during the Vedic times. Though divorce laws were made at least 2500 years back by a great scholar and a political genius named Chanakya, there were hardly any divorces then. This was not because women were so oppressed in the Indian society and that they didn't have the courage or the choice but to put up with evil husbands. Women oppression that we have been seeing in India in the recent centuries is only the effect of the cultural damages that has occurred. There is absolutely no truth to saying that women oppression has been the way of life all along in the Indian society. Though gazillion examples can be quoted from the Vedas, I will quote just a couple from it. In the Vedic marriage system, there is a chant called Saptapati, where it becomes clear that a wife is not a slave but a companion. Towards the end of the chant, the husband states, "Because of this Saptapati, we have become friends. Let us never part from this friendship. Let us do everything together. Let us experience all the aspects of life together." He then adds, "Samraji Bhava," which means be the queen of our home. I am sure no one would call someone a queen if she was going to be treated like a slave. If the Vedic system of life had prevailed in India in its pure form, this country would not be facing such horrendous problems today. Kanchi Sri Mahaperiva and many other true saints like him have stated that women oppression, caste-based discriminations, and other such major problems in India are only a misinterpretation and abuse of the Vedic system, and the system as such has nothing to do with it. Another Vedic script depicts the role of a woman in a family as follows. A woman is one who fulfills her duties to her family, which includes her husband, children, in-laws, and others. A woman is one who serves in the capacity of a minister when it comes to advising her husband for running the family. A woman is one who keeps herself well-dressed and presentable all the time, which invokes the blessings of goddess of wealth, Lakshmi. In addition, in Manu Dharma, an ancient justice system practiced in India states that a wife is none other than an incarnation of goddess Lakshmi, and that there is no difference between the two. This clearly tells us as to how high a woman in India was regarded in the olden days. A woman is equal to goddess of Mother Earth when it comes to her tolerance level. It is needless to say how Mother Earth is tolerant to all our abuses. We get our food from her, we get our precious stones from her. Everything that we get on this planet is pretty much because of her. And what do we do to her? We spit on her, we pile garbage on her, all the human and other environmental waste is dumped on her. Yet Mother Earth is so tolerant with us and does not fail to provide us everything that we need to live. A wife's tolerance level is compared to that. How symbolically we call Earth as Mother Earth and not Father Earth. This by itself clearly brings out the superior qualities in a woman. A woman is one who shows her love to her husband just like how she would show her love to a child. And only as the last rule, the script states that a woman should pleasure her husband in such a way that he would never think of another woman even in his dreams. The above examples make it clear that women in ancient India were never oppressed or used as pleasure-giving toys, but she was held in such high regard both in her family and in the society. A quick recap of the key points from this session. Arranged marriage system in India requires major reforms in order for it to be successful. It is vital to strengthen the efforts to eradicate child marriage around the world. It is vital to empower women and regard them as equals, just like in the Vedic times. Confidence about the marriage system has to be built among the young generation so they won't choose to stay away from it. That brings us to the end of this session. Please take time to join us in session 3. Thank you. Session 3. In this session, we will first see the techniques used in the ancient days to make monogamy a reality. We will then see how adult contents in today's media leads to polygamy, how it causes problems in the marital relationships and other damages to the world. Now let us look at some of the ancient techniques used to handle the sexual urge and how monogamy was preserved. One can find tons of articles on the web indicating that a considerable portion of the young generation in India is taking to sex before marriage. In my opinion, this can be nothing but disastrous, and it breaks my heart to see that it is becoming more and more common in India. What's even worse is, more and more parents have come to accept this practice rather than taking time to find a proper solution to it. I strongly discourage premarital sex not only because this is an almost a never in practice thing in India, but also from the health and safety aspects. An article by the US Food and Drug Administration states that monogamy, or in other words, by limiting sex to one partner who also limits his or her sex in the same way, as one of the ways to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. According to AWA 2013 statistics, India ranks third in HIV epidemic. For a country that has had a huge reputation for monogamy, which has been the way of life for millenniums, and for a country that has set a huge example to the world for being a highly civilized society, it is heartbreaking that just in less than a century, or maybe even a few decades of degraded living, has brought this country to this pitiful state. The Vedic lifestyle of ancient India prescribes some very effective methods to control the sexual urge and preserve monogamy that can be easily inculcated in the future generations. The key to success is in laying the foundation right in the tender age. Well-defined, disciplined, and religious lifestyle will help them to get through the teen years without many incidents. The young minds should be directed to constructive things and not given enough time for distractions, which is when the problem starts. There is a famous saying in Tamil when translated goes like, let the Gayatri mantra enter the mind before the sexual desires enter it. In the olden days, boys as young as 5 or 7 years old went through the ancient ritual of wearing the sacred veil called as Upanayanam in Sanskrit, during which the guru teaches this mantra to the young boy. The boy diligently recites this mantra day in and day out at specific times for the years to come, and as a matter of fact, he never stops this practice until his death. According to the Vedas, this mantra, when properly practiced, creates enough power in a person to control his mind and body that prevents him from wandering around and exploring undesirable things. Another ancient practice to control the sexual urge was the wearing of the loincloth, which has been replaced by the modern day underwear. Before the invention of undergarments, men used to wear tight loincloths for underwear. Today, not many know what this loincloth is even in villages, or why they used to wear it so tight using a sturdy thread around their waist. It is amazing that without any technology whatsoever, how our ancestors understood the human body so well. The secret is not in the loincloth itself, but in the way it was worn. It has to be worn tight using the thread. This helps in two ways. When the male sex organ is held tight like in a pouch and its movements are restricted to the required extent, the production of sexual desire stimulating hormones is very much limited, thereby automatically controlling the urge. Free movement means more production of the undesired hormones, especially at that age, and things go out of control. The second advantage to wearing the thread tight around the waist is that it helps the kidneys to function properly, avoiding all kidney-related problems as we age. After marriage, the loincloth was not worn as tight as when they were bachelors, because then it was morally permissible to enjoy the pleasures that a marriage had to offer. Just a piece of cloth and a meter-long thread, that is all it took our ancestors to address one of the vital aspects of life. I can't help but admire their ingenuity. The above-mentioned techniques are for men. So what do the scriptures have to say about women? Nature has a tricky design here. It is said that the sexual desires for women are far more than men, but women have a natural ability to control the urge that one could almost never notice it, whereas the urge in men is almost uncontrollable and visible, but it quickly ends as soon as the urge is fulfilled. So it was never a big problem for women. Dr. Ryan from Psychology Today states, men especially are designed by evolution to be attracted to sexual novelty and to gradually lose sexual attraction to the same partner in the absence of such novelty. While it may be right to say that nature has designed men that way, the above-mentioned ancient ways of living has definitely helped men to overcome it. Just like how we use an umbrella to protect ourselves from sun and the rain, these techniques have definitely helped India to keep monogamy as a way of life for millenniums. Most importantly, one can find a ton of references in Vedas as to how sex was used mainly for procreation in the olden days. So evolution continued as nature has intended. A very clear idea about sex was gradually taught from an appropriate age, and as they grew to become adults, they knew exactly how to handle it. Not only was sex used for only procreation in the olden days, as per Bhagavad Gita, it was considered as a sacred act when it happened between a husband and a wife at appropriate times and when it is intended only for procreation. It was part of fulfilling one of the family duties of the couple. Let us now see how adult contents in media wreck civilization and the desperate need for serious reforms in the media world. Unlike today, there was almost nothing in those days to provoke sexual desires. Today, media is abused to a great extent in this regard. A report by Russell Flannery from Forbes states the following. A Chinese divorce lawyer Lu Lin from Beijing Shanglai law firm said, social media is a catalyst for divorce, and has quoted some examples where both men and women having extramarital affairs through the connections they established using the social network, which resulted in ending their marriages. I cannot agree more to the fact as to how uncontrolled media, and not just social media, can wreck our lives and degrade the cultural standards of any society. Social media is not to be particularly blamed for sexually provocative materials and profanity, but in the modern world, pretty much every media is abused in this aspect. Though most of us use many forms of media for professional reasons, one can find tons of nude, vulgar, obscene and seductive photos and videos which would inevitably attract the opposite sex, and is impossible to bypass these provocative materials except by those who are sitting in caves and meditating. I once typed universal peace in the search box in one of the sites to see if the search results show our work. Among the list was also a video of a nude man and a woman making love. What does this have to do with universal peace, and why would people tag this under universal peace is just beyond me. The extent of vulgar contents knows no bounds, and the extent of damage caused to this world because of this can never be put in words. Though I have personally boycotted having TV at home for nearly 10 years now, sometimes I end up in a place where there's no way out, like railway stations, hospitals, or someone else's house where I pay a visit to. And my heart bleeds looking at the contents that are constantly being fed to the minds of billions of people day in and day out. A book has been published from the teachings of the world-renowned saint, Sri Mahapariva, which specifically elaborate on women and the desperate need for us to go back to some of the old traditions. Women in India are still considered equal to goddess, at least in traditional families, and are held in such high regard. Anyway, with media being abused so much, it's no wonder we have so many sexually transmitted diseases, sexual abuses, sexual harassments, rapes, sex scandals, extramarital affairs, long list of young mothers who are hardly 10-12 years of age, and so on. There's simply no point in blaming or whining about the rise in the above-mentioned diseases and crimes when we are actually fueling these day in and day out with filthy creations. Any action against it has simply no power to match this monster. Freedom of expression does not necessarily mean that one could express anything and everything that comes to the mind. It should have its limits, just like everything else. Can we allow a person to freely express and implement his or her desire to rob a bank? Can we allow a person to freely express and implement his or her desire to fatally wound a person? Why do we call it a crime and take action against a person? In a civilized society, we have rules as to what we can and cannot do, and when this rule is broken, it has its consequences. In a similar fashion, under the freedom of expression banner, the inappropriate contents that are freely floating around the world cause more damages to this world than we could ever imagine. What an individual chooses to do within his or her four walls is nobody's business as long as it does not have any adverse effect on others. Monogamy can never be enforced as a rule for every human on this planet. Every person has his or her own desires and weaknesses. The system of life is always flexible enough to tell what's good and bad, what's right and wrong, and has allowed the humans to naturally evolve to higher levels. At the same time, it does not permit anyone to willfully cause harm in any fashion to other human beings. One common justification we hear for this type of freedom of expression is, I will do what I want, and if one does not have self-control, what can I do? The answer to this question is, this entire universe operates on the basis of desires, whether it is to build a castle or to become a king, a monk, a millionaire, or a great soccer player, so on and so forth. If everyone controlled their desires or had the ability to control the desires, evolution will come to a standstill. As we all know, this will never happen, and it's against nature. Just like some of the above mentioned desirable desires, there are also many undesirable desires such as robbing, killing, harassing, stalking, raping, etc. And in that list also comes provoking others to do those undesirable things, which are even more wrong than actually doing those things ourselves. And with a powerful tool like media that has the ability to effect changes in billions of people at a time, we can imagine the severe damages it can cause when used in the wrong fashion. Sexual desire is one of the most difficult things to overcome for human beings. Plenty of references can be found in Vedas as to how many ancient rishis who sat in deep meditation for years to realize God were tested by Maya, otherwise known as illusion, by sending women of irresistible beauty, fell for it and forgot God. Only those who were able to overcome this and other tests were able to realize God in His true form. God incarnations like Kanchi Mahapariva, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsar, and Swami Vivekananda were like fire that no temptations could have any effect on them. The Gospel by Luke, chapter 4, verses 1 to 15 talk about how Jesus was led by the Spirit for 40 days in the wilderness and was tempted by devil on various things. The devil ultimately lost to Jesus and departed. Buddha was tested too by Maya prior to reaching his goal. Only true saints like them were able to overcome these temptations in life. It is needless to say that this desire is such a powerful force that could make even the most sensible person fall for this temptation, and we can imagine the effect of it in common people. So why add loads and loads of fuel to the already blazing fire? Why provoke people to do wrong things? To summarize, in my opinion, the temptations created by uncontrolled media not only make people do wrong things, even to the extent of breaking their marriages, but also corrupts the human minds, preventing them from realizing their true self. Unless the media world realizes the seriousness of this problem and comes together to fix it, we would continue to make irreparable damages to this world. A quick recap of the key points from this session. Well-defined, disciplined and religious lifestyle would prevent sex before marriage. It is vital that serious efforts are taken to preserve monogamy in India and wherever possible in the world. Media world requires serious reforms to prevent cultural damages to the world and steer the future generations in the right direction. That brings us to the end of this session. Please take time to join us in session 4. Thank you. Session 4. In this session, we will look at some suggestions from the ancient teachings to ensure successful marriages, thereby reduce divorce rates in the future. Volumes of invaluable guidance can be found in the ancient Vedic scriptures and in the hundreds of books written by great scholars and saints that will help us in every aspect of our everyday lives. Here, I'm listing only a few from what I've grasped over the years from the above teachings that are relevant to marriage and a happy family life. First and foremost, replacing the I with we in every aspect is very important. Once in a union, if the husband and the wife erase the I, my, mine, etc. with we, us and ours, it will lay a strong foundation for a happy family. In my opinion, having separate bank accounts, undisclosed accounts, dividing bills between each other, premarital agreement and such other things do not indicate a true union. Good or bad, both the man and the woman are in it together, so it may be better if a couple try to do everything together. Buy a house together, buy a car together, go shopping together, pay the bills together, go to places of fun together, work together in times of trouble and so on. The ability to put complete faith in the spouse is vital, and it is equally important for both to act in a way that would develop that level of trust. It would be wonderful if neither had anything to hide between each other. Also, if a couple develop the ability to talk about anything under the sky without any reservation, it will help them understand each other better and will always come handy during testing times. Often, misunderstanding between couples is caused by people other than them. But it will happen only if a couple allowed anyone to come between them. Particularly in India, many marriages break because of this very reason. A deep emotional closeness in a couple would prevent from anyone entering between them under any circumstances. As this emotional bond increases, it will reduce the need to communicate with each other through words. The two hearts will be in union, that one will know exactly what the other person would say, how they would react, or what they would want to do under any given situation. No one likes to be let down in front of others, and it applies to married couples too. Even if one of the partners was at fault, it may be better to take it offline than discuss in front of others, pointing out each other's mistakes. More importantly, if someone were to talk ill about the spouse in his or her absence, it would be even best to shut them up right away by telling them bluntly, "I know about my wife," or "I know about my husband, please mind your own business." The ability to understand the strengths and weaknesses in each other and forgive each other, at least when the mistakes aren't too serious, is vital for a couple. It would be a very healthy practice if a couple would take a walk every day, hand in hand, by the beach or in some quiet and peaceful surroundings. Nature has immense power to take away our stress, and the more relaxed we are, the more we will be able to address the problems in front of us in a rational manner. Life is always about give and take, and it very well applies to marriage. It is important to know that marriage requires plenty of sacrifices to be made for the sake of the family, and a prepared mind will make it easy to meet the demands. When an attitude says that, "Oh, I'm doing it for the well-being of my family," is developed, then the "oh, I'm losing out on my freedom" thought will never find a place. It is very important for a couple to maintain absolute confidentiality when it comes to private matters or other important family matters. What happens between a husband and a wife stays within them, unless in serious cases like abuse, harassment, etc. Talking about every family matter to everyone outside would be very unhealthy and will definitely come back to haunt the family in the long run. As far as India is concerned, I am very much inclined towards arranged marriage system, as long as the parents put in enough efforts to ensure the worthiness of the match they are choosing for their son or daughter. When I say worthiness, I mean the family background and the character of the individual, and not the material values. Also, it is very important for the parents to work as a team with their son or daughter to gain their acceptance and not force them into a marriage if they are not up to it. Blindly following astrology in the modern era would be nothing but catastrophic to the individuals. I would like to reiterate what the High Court of Mumbai stated during a divorce ruling, that divorces are very high in love marriages. With proper reforms to the arranged marriage system, we can definitely save the future generations from crisis. Also, as stated earlier, the Indian traditions and culture do not permit sex before marriage, and if this practice is not preserved, it will be a severe blow to the nation. Many articles and magazines pertaining to India state that parents of both sides interfere too much in a marital relationship. I am very much inclined towards a joint family system in India, where the parents of the boy live with him after the marriage. But extreme care should be taken not to meddle too much with the personal affairs of the couple, and the parents should give them the privacy that they need. The parents from the girl's side also should not interfere in every small fight the couples have, and neither should they encourage the girl to discuss it with them. The couples have to overcome these challenges by learning to deal with these problems themselves, so they cultivate the ability to communicate with each other well under testing times. Outside help should be sought only in serious matters like abuse, harassment, etc. Also, if the girl's parents do not have a male sibling, then it is the responsibility of the son-in-law to provide care and support, just like how he would do for his own parents. Counseling for both boys and girls before marriage would prepare them well to face the challenges that a marriage has to offer. In my opinion, this cannot be a one-sitting thing just before the night of the wedding, but has to be done over a period of time. Perhaps starting this a few years prior to getting them married would be ideal. Irrespective of geographical boundaries, a wife is to be looked at as an equal and nothing less, not merely because women are well equipped with good education and hold high paying jobs, but as a matter of respect to the gender, just like how it was in the ancient times. Cultivating reading habit is vital for a successful marriage. I'm not talking about romance novels or websites that give tips about having the best sex. I'm talking about books or other materials that will change our lives for the better. History, biographies of people who changed the world for the better, nature and its power, religion, inspirational books, and so on. Most importantly, I strongly recommend taking solace in one's own religion, no matter which one it is. I'm sure we will find all the answers that we are looking for in life. If the children are trained to visit a place of worship every day and to read the scriptures that are traditionally followed, the world will see a drastic reduction in divorce rates in the future. It not only applies to children but also to the present day couples too. Right from the day of the union, it would be wonderful if the couple developed the habit of going to a place of worship every day, even if it is for a few minutes. Praying together, meditating and chanting together, and conducting religious rites as a couple at home every day would all make the house a divine place. As a couple, when we learn to surrender ourselves under the feet of the Almighty, it will definitely help us to sail through the rough seas when times are bad. When this habit becomes second to nature, the bodily desires will vanish as years pass by, turning the union into a divine relationship. Once a relationship turns divine, even if the sexual attraction is lost to the partner, the mind will not start looking for novelty, as Dr. Ryan from Psychology Today says in his article. In my opinion, lack of this divinity at home is one of the main reasons for failures in the modern day marriages. The success of marriages in India in the olden days and the fact that the country has had monogamy as a way of life for millenniums could be mainly attributed to this one factor alone. Even if one of the partners was not fulfilling the duties to the family, the other took solace in religion and the Almighty that helped him or her to get through the difficult times rather than breaking this sacred bond. It would be impossible to count the number of Indian women who have put up with horrible husbands even for decades together and have either changed their husbands for the better or raised their children in a proper way without breaking the bond. Such enormous patience they had within them and immense respect for the bond. I'm not justifying the actions of men, and neither am I suggesting that women have to put up with such nonsense, but there is a need to find a balance. Many youngsters today, both men and women, walk into the court bent upon breaking the bond for some very silly reasons, as mentioned before. This is certainly not a healthy practice. One of the stats released by AWO.com states that Christians have the same divorce rate as the national average and atheists have a much lower divorce rate than Christians. While I don't question the stat, I have trouble accepting the label in it. There is a profound dialogue in The Godfather movie Part 3 where a to-be pope says something along the lines, "Christianity has been around here for centuries, but Christ has not penetrated in them." This could be applied to any religion and not Christianity. If I were to call myself a Hindu and do not have a firm belief in the system and follow the rituals and religious rites to the extent I can, then there is no point in calling myself a Hindu. Most part of the recent generations, irrespective of the religious backgrounds, are entangled in the race for material objects that leaves no time for religion or other aspects of life that makes us humans. In my opinion, this is one of the major reasons for many of the problems in the world today. I was once traveling in a fully packed long-distance train and there was a Muslim sitting opposite to me. It was around 5 p.m. and suddenly this man got up from his seat, spread a small blanket on the floor, kneeled down and started doing namaz. I was so surprised and fascinated by his faith and the fact that he didn't mind 15 other people sitting there and watching him do something that is not seen commonly in a place like that. I wish I had at least half of his dedication. Now, if everyone had such immense faith in the Almighty and were to diligently follow their religious traditions without thrusting their beliefs on others, this world will see a tremendous change. Point is, merely having a label as a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim does not matter much if we don't truly live up to the label. Those ancient day marriages were so successful not because all men and women were so perfect, but because of the tolerance and ability people had to sail through rough seas. And this ability comes from the strong family values, the strong affinity towards one's religion, and diligently following the rituals prescribed by the scriptures of the religion. In addition, the education system in the olden days prepared the individuals not only to fulfill their materialistic needs and desires, but also prepared them for the challenges that life has to offer. Before they entered into the marriage bond, they were totally ready for it. The modern education system purely focuses on the economic aspects of life and nothing more. It requires some serious reforms to fill the gaps. The ancient education system in India was so refined and perfect that it prepared the individuals to face the challenges of life in a rational manner. Nearly 100 years ago, Swami Vivekananda said that we need to bring that system back to life, and today the need for that system is a million times more. It is vital for every individual to know how people are suffering in the world and perhaps even go see the sufferings with our own eyes. This will definitely change our perspective on life. We will make extraordinary discoveries about our own life. We will know what we have been blessed with that millions out there are missing out on. This knowledge will help in overcoming not only our marital problems, but any problem that we may ever face in life. Last but not the least, the realization that no man is perfect, no woman is perfect, and that this world is not perfect is vital for a successful personal and professional life. We all make mistakes, and that's the only way we learn and grow. That's the way nature has intended life to be. That brings us to the end of the study on reducing divorce rates around the world. To summarize, I would say that there is a strong need to reform the education system to equip children with enough life skills so they can face the challenges that a marriage has to offer, rather than looking at divorce as a first option. In addition, parents have a vital role to play in preparing their children for a healthy and successful married life. The to-be married couples have to be counseled enough before they enter into the union. Broadening the horizons on life may help people who are already in the union, and taking to religion, spirituality, including yoga and meditation, will definitely help the marriage to be healthy. With these in place, I'm very positive that the divorce rates will definitely reduce in the future. Before I finish, I would like to state that some of the things discussed in this study may not be suitable for all geographic regions, traditions, and cultures. The study on marriage, divorce, and other things is not to be taken as universally applicable or recommended practice. Please take only what suits your environment and leave the rest. The idea is to provide some general guidance that may benefit people to build healthy marital relationships and to help reduce the divorce rates around the globe. I would like to end this session with a small note. One of my greatest teachers in this world is a leprosy-afflicted woman. I have known her for years, and her body has reached a stage where it's beyond cure. She often comes with her family members who are also afflicted with leprosy to the nearby busy main road for begging. Lately, I've been noticing considerably thick bandages in her feet, and one can see blood seeping all the way to the outer layer of that thick bandage from her almost rotten feet. She probably feels no pain given the advanced condition, but it would look awful, and one can't possibly imagine being in that condition. With all that, whenever we get a chance to see each other and have a chat, she would always talk so cheerfully, give a big smile, showing all her teeth and whatnot. I have always wondered how in the world she is able to smile like that, given her state of life, which, unless a miracle happens, has no hopes of reviving. Every time trouble finds me, I try to remember her and tell myself, hey, if she can smile in her state, I have no reason to whine about anything. This is true to many of us. There are millions of people like her in this world, immensely suffering for one reason or the other, and they still pull it off somehow. If they can do it, we should be able to handle our troubles in a far better fashion, whether it is personal or professional. Thank you all for listening, and we from Universal Peace and Charitable Trust send our love to all of you and wish you a life filled with peace and prosperity. We kindly request you to share this video with your family and friends, and also with anyone whom you know to be in a strained relationship and maybe on the verge of ending their marriage. We hope this study might help them to rethink their decision. We heartily welcome your suggestions so we may improve upon, and please support our work in whatever possible manner. May love and peace radiate throughout the universe. Thank you. Please note the following. Due to the varying internet speed around the globe, we have decided to reduce the resolution of the video and the bit rate so it may enable people with low speed connection to watch the video. Dr. Saravanan Sundaresan talks about various social issues around the world and discusses ways to create a more peaceful world for the future generations. To watch his other videos, please visit our website www.universalpeacetrust.org and click on the videos menu option. Please purchase videos of your choice in high resolution as a DVD. All proceeds will directly go to our community projects. Please contact us for more details. Thank you.